What's up, guys? Gonna show you a quick repair on Bronco. Code is M7, I believe. It's a new fender, new front door, and blend the rear door. Let's get it going. Alrighty, first things first, starting off with some glass cleaner. A little pre-cleaning, help cleans the blend panels and helps save on costs so you don't have to use waterborne cleaner or wax and grease remover all the time. You still need those before you paint, but you'll see that a little bit later on. Next, I grabbed some 500 grit, my DA. Make sure all those 320 sand scratches are out from the buddy guys, but my buddy guys do a pretty good job, so it doesn't take much. After that, I go ahead and jump to 800 grit, and that's for the blend panels. This is where the pre-cleaning really comes in handy because your 800 grit and your 500 grit can last a whole lot longer when it doesn't get clogged up with dirt and debris. Lastly, we just use some red Scotch-Brite. If you're new to this, I suggest using gray Scotch-Brite because you can easily burn through the edges. And I like going all over just to make sure everything is all nice and taken care of. The red Scotch-Brite helps in small cracks and crevices. Again, if you're new to this, probably should stick to the gray. Once again, same stuff, different toilet. 800 grit for them blend panels. Sometimes I like using the red Scotch-Brite first, and then you use the 800 grit to basically sand out those scratches. It's like polishing a little bit. There's a whole lot of methods and roads, all leading to the same destination. The best thing about this, you can just pick the one that works best for you, as long as you end up with the same result, and as long as your customers are happy. That's all that matters. Give that a quick blow job. Then we jump straight to the wax and grease remover. We make sure that panel is fully covered. I like using microfiber rags. It was a thing that I found on Instagram. A guy named Ali Paints. You gotta check him out if you haven't. That's his name on Instagram and YouTube. Really cool guy. But microfiber rags just saves on cost. They're cleaner. You can throw them in the wash machine when you're done with them. The white balls just don't do it for me. You know, I have the white balls or another prep rag or whatnot, but I don't hardly use it for anything. So we're setting this project up for a little bit of primer. We're gonna use UV primer. UV primer is I feel like it's the way of the future. I love the way it sands, I love the way it builds, and I love how fast it is. It doesn't really overspray like that either, much like catalyzed primer does. I'm using my 3M disposable tip primer gun, and I'm using some 3M PPS cups that are UV tinted. I'm doing 2 coats of the UV, quick flashes with the light. UV primer is kind of hard to see on camera, but it's easier to see in person. It does have a tint to it. I believe it is transparent for the light to work. The UV primer starts off kind of shiny, and then when you hit it with the light, it flashes off to a dull state, and you can almost see it dry before your eyes. You can also pretty much feel it with your hands. They recommend using the back of your nail, but you can just use the front of your hand. It's the same thing. As long as you're making sure that it's dry in between coats. We'll give this 2 coats. Then I cure it for about a minute, 30 seconds with the UV light. UV primer comes in aerosol cans and also comes in the pint form. I've used both, but personally I like the pint form because it comes out in a more consistent manner. Now that that's all done, we're going to go ahead and grab some 320 with our block. Make sure we hit it in both directions. And what I mean is just go diagonally and from the right and then go diagonally to the left as you see. If you're new to this, I recommend using guide coat at first, but in all reality, you can see the texture disappear as you block the primer, so then you'll know when it's completely flat. I threw down some guide coat for my 320 scratches to sand those out with 500 grit. And this part is super easy. You just sand till you don't see black anymore or the guide coat anymore. When it comes to brand new factory parts with E-coat, you can stick paint directly to it without sanding it, but sometimes parts have rub marks and you'll see that after you finish. So I like to sand everything with 500 grit. Even if a brand new panel looks perfect, I still sand it with 500 grit just to make sure I did not miss anything, because sometimes there are small burrs or defects that you can't see with your eyes and you only can really feel, so it's just easier to run over with 500 grit just to be safer than sorry. Give it another quick blow job. Best to remember, starting with a smooth base will lead to a smooth finish. Some more wax and grease remover with the microfiber rag. Gonna make sure you get every last spot with wax and grease remover, because this is gonna be the last time you hit it with wax and grease remover before we tape it and put it in the paint booth. We have chips for most colors, but for this particular one we don't, but these are all the variants sprayed out. I'll probably end up going with the bottom one. Looks like my best bet. Doesn't have to be perfect, just has to be blendable. Went ahead and back taped everything. For instance, the hood and the door is pretty simple. Don't need a tutorial on that. Bagged up everything, getting it ready for paint. Again, we're going microfiber rags and waterborne cleaner in the booth. We've already waxed and grease removed everything, so lastly we just need some waterborne cleaner. I like making one rag just super wet with the product and then leaving the other one completely dry. I don't really like spraying the panel because sometimes there's leftover product that I end up missing, so there's an extra precaution for me because I'm just not that good when it comes to prepping. Even though I've prepped for years, you know what I mean? We all make mistakes. But I get my rag super wet, I wipe the panel down completely, and then I take my second dry rag and then I keep wiping until the panel is completely dry. There is no leftover product whatsoever. Next, we're going to go ahead and grab a tack rag and make sure we tack off all the extra dust. A helpful tip is also to tack off the plastic. Whenever you tack things off, it is known to create static, so having a stat gun helps neutralize that static, which is an invisible enemy that you're always fighting in the paint booth. As you see me hit the plastic and also hit my panel. I also like using the stat gun as a final blower as well to make sure all final debris is off, while also neutralizing any static on the plastic or the panel that I'm about to paint. Alright, we went ahead and mixed up some sealer, mostly Lumaiii products. We're using our Jet 5500 RP 130 tip. We're laying down some 5650 Spies Hector waterborne sealer. We of course want to cover our primer with sealer, but we also want to cover the edge of our blend panel to make sure our new door matches, because sometimes the door could be a little bit darker or lighter in comparison to what shade you're using. We tack off any extra sealer, also hitting it with the stat gun again because it creates that static charge. We're laying wet bed. It doesn't really matter what you use for wet bed, it just needs to be a uniform closed coat, at least for Spies Hector. With Spies Hector is a wet on wet process, so I need to make sure that the panel is wet all the time. And then it being wet all the time just ensures that any overspray lays correctly or any metallics lay correctly. So I start off with a motorcycle wrist action at the farthest point, and that's the last point of my blend. And then I go ahead and blend out my color at the edge of the door, and then lastly I finish off with an orientation coat. Pretty much the same thing with the hood. We're going a closed uniform coat with the wet bed. That's what this is. And wet bed is just a clear base coat if you did not know. And we're taking the wet bed all the way up to where our sealer was. Starting with the motorcycle wrist again. It's best to hide blends on body lines. You really don't want to blend in the middle of the hood, because sometimes it's easier to see, especially a flat panel like that. We go ahead and put that base coat down over our sealer. Looks a little stripy, but once you go ahead and orientate it, it flattens out. I'm using my Lumaiii Exodus 1.3 for a base coat. I like this gun because it atomizes my paint really well. Nice big fan pattern, and the best part is it works for pretty much solvents. Waterborne. I haven't had any trouble with it at all. So as you can see, the blend came out impeccable. Shot this base at 26 psi. Again, this is Spies Hector High Tech and the Lumaiii 3 Exodus 1.3 tip. I left that base really smooth and silky. I love a good matte color. Hate that I have to clear it, but it must be done. Using the Lumaiii 3 Exodus 1.5 tip. Everyone always asks, how fast does it spray? Is it bigger than this? Is it this and this? It's a regular paint gun, to be honest with you guys. It in comparison to a SATA 1.2, it sprays the exact same. I use a SATA Jet 5500 1.30 tip besides my Exodus 1.5 tip, and that's just probably a tad bit faster than the Exodus. But this 1.5 tip, like, you'll see for yourself, like, it glasses things out. It's a really user-friendly gun. It's beginner-friendly. It's budget-friendly. It's really hard to beat, and that's why I push this gun so heavy. I mean, I get commission, so I'm pretty biased. Don't get it wrong, but I mean, for the cost of this in comparison to my SATAs, if you want to get in this field and if you want to start somewhere, I mean, I just think that's just such a great place to start. And you can always use my code SAUCY7. It'll save you 7%, and even beyond that, you know, they have sales all the time, so you're never really missing out unless you don't grab it at all. Remember to like and subscribe, and code SAUCY7 saves you 7%. Lumaiii 3 website. I'm on all other socials as Saucy Painter, so appreciate you for watching, guys.